There's no denying that Spider-Man has some of the most recognizable, colorful, and beloved supervillains known throughout all of superhero media, from animal-themed mercenaries to world-conquering mad scientists. And by now, a lot of them have had their time to shine on the big screen. However, there's a second side to Spider-Man's fights against crime that tends to get overlooked in the movies, aside from the beginning of Homecoming. And that's living up to his moniker of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, the superhero who will just as soon foil a car theft or a mugging as a plan to destroy New York or join the Avengers in fighting off some alien invasion. Comic book Spidey is no stranger to fighting off crime bosses, such as Silvermane, Tombstone, the Rose, the Crime Master, or the like, who make their fortunes and their identities by messing with relatively small-scale crime while continuing to evade the police. And none are as criminal, as vile, or as unapologetic in their lust for power and wealth as Wilson Fisk. As much as we all love to see old Webhead tangle with people that throw lightning, can control sand, or fly around throwing bombs, it would be a refreshing take for a cinematic movie Spider-Man to stand up for the little guy as he often does in the comics, and take on a more somewhat grounded threat. And besides, as we'll get to in a little bit, it's not like Wilson Fisk doesn't have the means to provide plenty of costume superweapon-wielding baddies for the wall crawler to butt heads with. So those that are thirsty for some superpower on superpower action need not go unsatisfied. Now, all that may sound like little more than a writer's wish list on how we can make the next Spider-Man movie different or unique, instead of just more of the same, and other such phrases commonly used when someone wants to make their narrative decisions sound all fancy and educated. But really, a lot of things have happened in the MCU that have not yet been addressed that could very well be setting up for the arrival of Kingpin. For instance, when Spider-Man was returned to life in Far From Home after his idol and mentor Tony Stark sacrificed himself, we learn that someone, somewhere, has bought Stark Tower, which used to serve as Avengers Tower, but it's never quite addressed as to who bought it. And when Spider-Man returns to New York at the end of Far From Home, and the audience finally gets to hear J. Jonah Jameson on the Daily Bugle make an appearance just to out Spider-Man's secret identity to the people due to Mysterio's actions, we learn an interesting fact about this version of the Bugle, namely that it's not a newspaper in this continuity, but a rather controversial online news site, which Jonah is mostly the face of. But who's to say he doesn't have a shadowy boss controlling the flow of information? Finally, there's the off-screen matter of the Defenders' rights, along with all associated characters finally returning to Marvel, with Matt Murdock's beloved actor Charlie Cox having been reported to be making appearances in Spider-Man 3. With all of these factors, we have the potential for an interesting series of events.
Over 5 years ago, half of all life in the universe, including our own Midtown High, was wiped from existence. But then, 8 months ago, a band of brave heroes brought us back.
This would allow ample time for Wilson Fisk to raise his criminal empire, unhindered by powerful heroes such as Spider-Man swinging all over the place. Thus, he could eventually amass the wealth necessary to purchase the Daily Bugle and other news sources, and later Stark Tower after the billionaire superhero's death. Imagine someone like Fisk working for years on gaining all this power, only for Spider-Man to suddenly appear and cause him no shortage of headaches. Why wouldn't he take advantage of the wall crawler's identity being revealed to orchestrate the manhunt that Jonah's ranting at the end of the last movie is more than likely to set off? It all just fits together so beautifully, like a perfectly laid Kingpin-style plan. Plus, this would allow Vincent D'Onofrio to reprise his role. And we could all use a little bit more Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin in our lives, right? But wait a minute. What about all those announced former villains, or the extra Spider-Men, and the various loose ends of the Spider-Man series? Well, it's not like this is the first time Kingpin has dabbled in alternate universe shenanigans, as we saw in Sony's Into the Spider-Verse. And with Maguire, Garfield, Molina, and Fox all reportedly returning, it certainly looks like we're gearing up for another crack at the Spider-Verse concept, especially with the inclusion of Doctor Strange, whose next movie outright acknowledges the existence of the multiverse, a theory that was already set up, admittedly as part of a ruse, by Mysterio in the last movie. While the multiverse madness is going to be part of Kingpin's plans or not, it would certainly be added chaos to the manhunt Kingpin could quite easily orchestrate, considering he has that one thing that so many villains crave: cash money. If Kingpin wants to make life difficult for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, it would be no issue to break Adrian Toomes out of jail, which would then hopefully finally give us a payoff to that Scorpion setup we got back in Homecoming, who could provide any number of Marvel Comics bad guy mercenaries with many of their signature weapons. Wouldn't it be a delight to see 3 Spider-Men bash their way through hordes of tech-wielding Spider-Man baddies, even if just in small cameos? They could even give us a new Shocker if they feel like making up for whatever the heck that guy was supposed to be. And let's take a quick potential head count for a second. We got Vulture, Scorpion, Shocker, Electro, Doc Ock, allow Toomes to outfit one more crook with super weaponry, or Mysterio to have merely staged his death, and suddenly we have ourselves a bona fide Sinister Six. Something superhero movies have been attempting to achieve ever since Mark Webb's Amazing Spider-Man duology began back in 2012. It would certainly make for an explosive finale, evocative of Spider-Man's long-running comic book and movie legacy.